¿Qué tal? Muy buen día a todos, a todas. Estamos en esta sexta sesión de We Exchange Ignite y estamos muy contentos de poderlas tener a todos aquí. Para las que se unen por primera vez, soy Melissa Vargas, Campus Manager en Central, en la Ciudad de México. Central es un tech hub de innovación y tecnología. Y les cuento un poco sobre We Exchange Ignite. Este es un programa de 9 sesiones para startups de tecnología en América Latina y el Caribe. Fundada o dirigida por mujeres, está liderado por Central en colaboración con We Exchange, la plataforma de BitLab y sus redes de partners en la región. Todas las sesiones quedan grabadas y las podrán encontrar en nuestro canal de YouTube. Para los que nos acompañan desde YouTube, por favor no dejen de compartirnos desde dónde se unen a estas sesiones. Y bueno, en esta ocasión agradecemos el apoyo de Collective Academy y de Humberto Amaya, quien es nuestro ponente el día de hoy. Humberto es un apasionado del storytelling, está especializado en comunicación con más de 10 años de experiencia en ventas en medios, contenido de marca y patrocinios para redes, medios digitales y revistas. También es ponente TEDx con la charla de Mighty Once Upon a Time. Pero no les quiero quitar más del tiempo de Humberto y mejor los dejo con él. Humberto, bienvenido, muchas gracias.
Hola, muchas gracias. Me dijeron que tocaba que esta fuera en inglés, así que me voy a switchar al inglés. Thank you, everyone, and good morning to everyone also. Okay, so let me just share the screen 1 second. Okay. So, thanks a lot for the invitation. I hope everyone's having a great morning. I'm very excited and thrilled to be here with you. And well, let's start talking about who am I and what am I doing here, which is one of the questions I ask myself every morning when I see my reflection in the mirror. And I know most of you can also ask yourselves this question when you look yourself in the mirror. But for the terms of this presentation, let me just share what a brief part of my experience is and why am I so passionate about storytelling. First of all, the things that no one tells you about, which is not the career side. I'm a very passionate about theater and also content in cinema and TV. I like consume content every day. I love it. I love to watch the stories behind the content and all of the characters and how they develop into the stories. And that's one of the main reasons I love storytelling, because it is one of the greatest, I may say, weapons we have as a humanity. I'm also a passionate karaoke singer, which is something in which I can involve in telling stories also, but with using my voice. And part of my career, well, most of my career has been around building stories. I studied communications in Universidad Anáhuac. Then I had a master's degree in screenwriting for television and cinema. Then I started my career working for Televisa, which is, you might know, one of the greatest media groups in here in Mexico. Back ago, well, it was 10 years ago when I started my career in Televisa, but it was not as everyone told me it was going to be. There's also a great story behind that. I will share it with you at the end. But well, I quitted Televisa and then started my career in the media, which is what I've been doing for the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years of my life. And mostly I connect brands with, I help brands to generate and create messages and advertisement for them, which is what I do actually, in my actual work, which is in Orla Interactive. So every day I'm involved with content. Every day I'm involved with stories. And the reason I became so passionate about storytelling was because when I was a kid, I don't know if many of you have seen the movie Big Fish. Kind of something happened like that for me. I was a young kid, and one of the greatest days for me in the week was Sundays, because Sundays were the days when my grandparents came to my house and visited me. And it was great for me because my grandfather, which was an army, he was in the army here in Mexico. Also, well, my great, his brother flew in the Escuadrón 201, which was, that only aviator squad that we Mexicans sent into the war back in the World War II. And he had some great stories to tell. In fact, he married. My grandmother was from the United States. He married her, and she worked for the CIA. Um, Actually, even when we asked her what she did on the CIA, she never told us. We believed she was not doing anything like very important, but she was very secretive about it. And my grandfather used to create a lot of stories around it, and it was very fun. He had some very interesting and fun stories to tell every day, which is why I started becoming passionate about storytelling, because it was magical for me that using only words, my grandfather could bring me to all those magical places, and keep me like imagining things, which was something I later started discovering is very important for us as a human, as human beings, and we will get there. So that's me. If you have any questions about me, it would be great if you could. I know you are watching. Some of you are watching this through YouTube. It would be great if you could share some of those questions in YouTube, and someone could help me if you have any questions. And for this session, there's few ground rules. I know most of you are not connected through the call. So just if you are in the call, please keep your camera turned on and mute microphone. But if you feel like it, you can ask questions at any time. Please let them write them if you are watching us through YouTube. Let's treat this as a friendly chat. I happen to know a lot about storytelling, so it is what we're going to do today. If you want, you can ask a question anytime. I'll try to answer it. This is I would not like this to treat this as a Shakespearean monologue, but you can feel free to ask anything. Most important, please get comfy. This is not rocket science. Talking about storytelling is talking about something we as a humans do every day. It is actually been it is known that most of what we do, and when we talk as human beings on a daily basis, it's up to 60% that we are talking in stories. So as you can imagine, we do this a lot. There is a book called A Storyteller's Animals. We are storyteller animals, so this is something we are used to. But there is some science, and there is a great power behind it, and this is what I tend to share with you today. So my main goal is for you to first of all understand what happens to our brain when we tell story. There are certain things happening in our brains when we start sharing a story, and this is very interesting because we as human beings all came with the same kind of a processor in our head. We are all built the same, and when we start telling story, every time happens some changes happen on the brain. So I will share with you what is happening there, so you can understand and that you can seize this power for you to later use it wherever it fits you. Also, we will learn how storytelling impacts our human behavior. It is also a fact that when we tell a story, we change the one that is hearing that story. So it is very important for me to you to understand how this impacts and how you can change someone telling the right story at the right time. And also, we will know different ways in which you can build stories. We will understand and learn, and we will have to kind of tore apart stories for you to learn which are the components and which are the things that build stories, and how you can use them when you are telling your story or the story you want to share. Okay. So it would be great. I know most of you are watching us through YouTube. It would be great if you could write in the comments and share with us your expectations for this session. So maybe we can, and I can address them throughout the session or at the end of the session. If you have any questions, just let us know. Okay. And this would not be a storytelling chat. This would not be a storytelling if I were not to share a story with you. So here's a story for you. Most of you may know this guy you are watching right now on your screen. He's one of the big three Mexican directors that became very famous some past years ago. He's Alfonso Cuarón. Alfonso Cuarón is known lately for his last movie, which was Rome. Was kind of a a movie that talked about Alfonso's childhood and what he had what he lived on when he lived in Mexico City. But aside from Rome, which is the last movie he made and it's all black and white, most of Alfonso Cuarón's movies have something in common, which I'm going to share with you right now. These are photograms, still pictures of of some of the Alfonso Cuarón latest movies. It's most of his filmography. You can see there Great Expectations, Little Princess, Gravity, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Rudo y Cursi, Y Tu Mamá También, Children of Men. And it's very clear that Alfonso Cuarón treats his movies in a specific and certain way. You might be guessing it's the color green. The color green is present in most of Alfonso Cuarón previous films, and there is a great story behind what or why Alfonso chooses to tint his movies with this green and to enlighten the greens in his movies. And the story is, when Alfonso was filming Solo con tu pareja, he became, he got in love with one of the actresses, which is Claudia Ramirez, and they married. They went on to live into a house in Mexico City, and one day Claudia goes down and says, Alfonso, there are these white columns in the middle of the house. I hate those white columns. Please do something about them. And Alfonso, says, what do you want me to do with the white columns? No? And Claudia said, just paint them. Okay. Which color do you want me to paint those columns? I don't know. The color you want, paint them green. And Alfonso became obsessed with, finding the right shade of green for him to paint these white columns at the middle of the house. And why am I telling you this story? Because it is something important on this. First of all, I've just created an image on your heads. You traveled with me, and you saw that house in your heads. You had the opportunity to get inside that house, which you created. You saw those white columns on the house, and you saw those columns getting painted green. Alfonso painted the columns green, and later on, he got divorced, but he said that he was gonna use that green color in most of his films, because by the time this story happened, he was very in love. And for him, the color green, the green color, and those, this obsession that was to paint with green, it represented for him, the first love, the first time you are married and you are so excited and you see the color with all this, see the world with all these colors, and that was the green for him. So he swore he was going to use that green color in his films, because for him the films would also, represent that kind of first love we encounter in our lives. So the reason I'm telling you this story is because I'm very sure, and I'm pretty sure, the next time you are watching one of Alfonso Cuarón's films, first of all, you're going to tend to notice that most of the film is painted in green color, which is something I just told you. Most importantly, if you're with someone, you're going to say, hey, do you know why Alfonso Cuarón paints all his movies with green? And you're going to tell them the same story I just told you. Um, one of the most impressive things for me in storytelling is I would like you to stop for a moment and think and tell to me just exactly 3 or 4 of the main points of that history class you took when you were a young kid, which I don't know, one 3 or 4 bullet points that were on the blackboard, that your teacher must surely put on that blackboard, and was talking about, I don't know, World War II. I'm pretty sure most of you won't be able to remember those bullet points. But what I'm sure of is that even though it happens to pass some time, and in, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, if you tell this Alfonso Cuarón story, that image that you created on your heads about that house and those columns is going to be the exact same image you imagined today. And that's one of the most impressive things that happens to us when we tell a story. When we create images in other person's heads, those images stick. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Inception, which talks about dreams, but in that movie, Leonardo DiCaprio's character says that ideas are some of the most resilient parasites we as human beings know. That also happens with stories. Stories are those vehicles for ideas to get into the brain. So yeah, when you tell a story, you create this resilient virus that sticks in your head. And this is one of the most powerful things that happens. And I'm going to talk about this power for you to discover, and you can use it for your own. So first of all, stories are very powerful. They change people. When I say they change, is that they literally change. And I would like for you to have a moment and think about all of the important decisions you've taken up to today. And the things that you do, the important things you do, are always followed by a story. There's a story behind them. There's a story behind every decision you've taken, major decisions and important decisions you've taken in your life. And a story is capable of this. A story is capable to get into our brain and change us. And this is because let's talk about the brain. And I told you we were going to talk what happens in our integrated CPU when we tell a story. First of all, the most important thing our brain is trying to do is to keep us alive. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. But let us stick with this for a moment, because our brain is trying to keep us alive every time. So one of the reasons we are as humanity are alive today is because we tell stories. Many years ago, when humans started living in groups and hunting animals and everything we know as the past of humanity, it was the word home in Mexico, in Spanish, sorry, is hogar, and the word hogar comes from fogar, and home was where this fire was burning. So whenever you started a fire, whenever you started that campfire, that was home. It could be anywhere, but it was the place where you could share with your families, what you could share with your community, what you could share with your partners, what had happened. And let us, think for a second that if we had, let's think about an antelope, and we're going to name this antelope John, and we're gonna go with John, and John is walking in the forest and then encounters a river, and he's thirsty, so he's going to drink some water from the river, and then a crocodile, let's call this crocodile Paul. The crocodile Paul comes in, and John, the antelope, runs back with his herd. But when he goes back, he's not able to tell them, hey, don't go and drink water in the river because there is a crocodile and they may eat you. If you just made Paul and John, the crocodile and the antelope, like human beings, they're not. They're animals. They're not able to tell a story. They're not able to share with their group. It's pretty sure that most of the antelopes of that group are going to go to the river and drink water, and maybe they're gonna get killed by this crocodile. But we as humans, as human beings, we do have this power. We can share with our community. If we go back, we can tell, hey, there is a crocodile in the river, and we may go as a group and hunt it, and then paint it on our caves, which is what we did. We told stories throughout paintings in our caves. So this is something we as a humanity have been doing for many, many years. I know most of you do it. Every time you go with, your brother, your sister, your partner, your spouse, you go and most of the time you say like, hey guys, do you know what I did yesterday? And you start telling stories. So this is something we as humans do every day. You do it every day, but there is some science behind it, and it is very important for me to understand what happens. Secondly, our brain, interprets reality because we have senses. So what this is telling us is that throughout our senses, throughout our sight, throughout our touch, throughout our smell, throughout hearing, we can determine that the world exists. So this is the language of the brain. The brain only happens to know reality because we can perceive it with our senses. So it is very important for the storytelling that you know that the language of the brain is based on our senses. So when we talk about senses, we are talking the language of the brain. It is far more important for the brain to understand this. And let me give you a brief example just before we go to an experiment I'd like to do with you. If I tell you right now to imagine 70% of something, you are right now imagining a 7, a 0, and the percentage sign, right? There is no image in your brain. But if I tell you to imagine yourself on a forest on a cold, cold winter night behind a campfire, and that you imagine the smell of that burning wood in the campfire, and you can feel the cold. I just created an image in your brain. You went to that forest and you are feeling the cold and you are smelling that. And it is far more important for the brain to understand things like this because that's the way the brain talks, Here's a brief experiment I'd like you to do with me. Please, you're watching yourselves in the screen a lime. And what I would like you to do right now is to close your eyes for a second and imagine that lime in front of you. And what I would like you to do is to, with your imagination, take a knife, cut that lime into a half, and take with your imaginary hand one of that lime halves, and get close to your mouth and squeeze that lime juice into your mouth and feel the sour and the bitterness of that lime rushing through your mouth. Okay, open your eyes. I know most of you, if you did this, could feel saliva here in your mouth, and you could feel that bitterness of the lime, even though you didn't have the lime in front of you. if I were to connect your brain to electrodes and we could watch what is happening in your brain, and we did this with a real lime, and we did this again as we did it just using my voice, the brain lights up in the exact same spots, the two, in the two versions. What this is telling us is that the brain doesn't know that this just didn't happen. The brain, we were telling a story to the brain, and the brain reacted and released, a chemical and physical and plausible experience in our body, because for the brain there was some lime entering into our body, and we had to produce a lime to contrast that acid. So it is a physical reaction that our body did, even though we were not with a real lime in front of us. And this is what happens when we tell stories. Let me just share about this. This is not a biology class, I promise. I will keep it short and sweet. But we have three, our brain has evolved and has, sorry. Okay, our brain has evolved in throughout these years, and we have like three, I would say, like, kind of brains integrated. So the first brain is our reptile brain, which is the brain that keeps us alive. This is the brain that tells the heart to beat. This is the brain that tells our lungs to breathe in and breathe out. This is also the brain that when we try to touch a candle, maybe, this is the brain that tells your hand to take out that hand because you're going to burn. That's the main function of this reptile brain, to keep us alive. Then we have a second evolutionary in our brain, which is the limbic system, and this is where our emotions and language are embodied. So this is where we keep emotions. Most of the mammals have this limbic system, some most and more developed than ours, and this is why some dogs can manifest emotions, right? We can see them get angry, we can see them get sad, we can see them get excited. And we have a third, and this is the most evolution part of our brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is where we store data and information. Something that is very important for storytelling, and it's very important for me to share with you, is that even though it is the same brain, the reptile brain cannot talk to the limbic system, or the prefrontal cortex cannot interfere with the limbic system. Let me give you an example. If you are very sad and you are crying, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part that gives you rationality, cannot just go and say, okay, you're not going to be sad anymore, and let's count back from 3 to 1, and then you're not going to be sad anymore, and you're not going to cry. That can't happen. You're going to be sad, and you will be, you will be still crying, even though your prefrontal cortex will try to understand what is happening to you, or will try to justify why you are sad and why you shouldn't be sad anymore. That's what the prefrontal cortex can do. Also, our prefrontal cortex, the rational part of our brain, cannot just turn our heart off. No, prefrontal cortex cannot go and tell to the reptile brain, okay, let's stop our hearts by just wanting to. That's not possible. But what happens is that all of these brains, which is the same, but all of these functions in our brain are on the same ecosystem, which is ruled by hormones and neurotransmitters, and that's why they can share some information between them. When we start telling stories, we release this, I can say this is like a powerful drug cocktail, which is very addictive into our brains. This cocktail is composed by oxytocin, which is one of the reasons, or one of the functions of this hormone. It is not just it is not the only function this hormone can do, but it is one of the functions, is to generate empathy. So when we release oxytocin, it's what is when we can connect with other human being and, get into their places and feel what they are feeling. Another of the hormones present when we tell a story is the cortisol, which is responsible for action. This is a hormone that if you were to watch one of your, familiars, and he is crossing the street and you see a car coming, you would yell to him that, hey, go out of the way, or you would just go and run and push him for him to not to be hit over by a car. So this is cortisol. This is the hormone that makes us want to do something. And then we have a third and an important hormone when we tell a story, which is the dopamine. In other words, this hormone turns us to irrational. It's like a hormone that turns down the volume for our prefrontal cortex. And maybe you can understand when I said when we are in love, there's a lot of dopamine. And I would like you to, just think for a second how many of the decisions you taken when you were really in love were really rational decisions. They were not. We are in love and we see the world like without these bright colors, and we are like in this state of, oh, everything's fine and I'm fine. And that's dopamine. So when we tell a story, these hormones, all of these three hormones go into action. Netflix knows this. That's why when we are watching, our favorite show on Netflix, and one of the chapters ends, we there is a bar down there that says next chapter is starting in 5, 4, 3, and it is very impossible for us to just say, oh no, I'm going to turn down the TV right now. We tend to watch this, and I know some of you maybe have binge watched, a series like started at 10 a.m. one Saturday, and then you went all the day watching that series, because this hormone cocktail is very addictive into our brains. That's what happened when we tell a story. And maybe you can also remember back when you were kids that you saw a movie. I don't know, there was a movie about this scientist, and when the movie ended, because you had some cortisol into your system, and you felt empathy, and you felt and you are in that irrational state, you wanted to be the scientist, and you ran out with your parents and say, hey, please, I want a chemistry set, I want to make potions. And that's what happens to kids, but also is what happens to us as an adults. When we hear a story, this cocktail enters into our system, and we want to do something. When we feel empathy for the other human beings, and we are in an irrational state. This happens every time we tell a story, and the more complex and the more we are into the story, the more this cocktail is going to run through our systems. So why am I sharing this with you is because this is one of the powers of storytelling. Imagine yourselves when you're telling a story, the other human being has these hormones running through their systems, and you are capable to seize, to take action and to do something with this, because every human being releases these cocktails when you are hearing a story. And I was telling to you that when we tell stories, it's all about the feeling. So believe me when I say that one of the most important things when you are telling a story is to connect with feelings, is to talk about feelings, to for you to paint into the brain to paint in the brain these images that the brain can understand throughout the feelings. When you are telling a story, it is important for you to make the other feel and to seize and to get that images into other people's brains, so that they can imagine and they can take a decision. It is important for me to say to you that when we tell a good story, the brain tends to make a decision, even though the prefrontal cortex goes into place and tries to justify things. So to give you a quick example of this, when you go out and buy something expensive, but you've been thinking about that, I don't know, last model of the iPhone, and then you've been thinking about it, and you've seen the characteristics online, and you went into Apple's page and you watched everything, and you are very convinced that you want that. And when you go into the store and the guy says, okay, it's $500, even though it is expensive, you think as yourself, so that's why I work, right? So I'm gonna buy this because you've already taken the decision. Even though your prefrontal cortex tries to justify and says to you, okay, it is expensive, you will have to cut expenses next month, it doesn't matter. The decision is already taken because you built a story into your brains for you to take that decision that led up to that moment. So when you tell a story, one of the most important things is connect with the feelings, to make the other one feel. And just to wrap up this first part of what we're talking about, the brain, it is important for me to know that stories keeps us alive. So our brain is trying to keep us alive, and one of those things is to share stories with somebody else, because our brain knows that when we are in company, it is it is more likely for us to survive than if we are alone. So that's why we try to connect with other human beings, and the best way to do it is telling stories. And also, stories can alter our brain chemistry. We can make a fictional inception that we can later believe as a fact. That's what stories make. They make us feel. And they are the most basic language for the brain to understand and create our reality. So they're very important. You know now what happens in the brain. And one of the questions that is not for you to ask to yourselves, it is for you to try to answer this when you are going to tell a story. The most important question is to answer why it matters to me. When you're telling a story, you have to answer what it will matter for the other one that is going to hear your story. The more you are connected with this, the more your story serves a purpose for the other person, the more it is going to create this impact and is going to change the brain the way we want it to change. And this is something that we as human beings, when we are talking about storytelling, and what we do when we talk about storytelling is that, okay, you have you have something to communicate, you want to generate influence, and you need people to do something, right? So if you are entrepreneurs and you are pitching your great company's pitch to a group of investors, yes, investors, sorry I was forgetting the word. So if you're pitching your company idea to a group of investors, you want to communicate to them your story. You want to generate influence, because ultimately what you want is for those investors to invest in your company, right? To raise money, to raise funds. So the storytelling is capable of addressing all of these things. And it is also because we have some challenges when we are talking to persons every day. One of those challenges is the attention span. What you're watching there is an image of the world record that Usain Bolt won the last time he ran the 100 meters race. And that record is, I believe so, it should be 8 seconds or more or less. So when you're starting to talk to someone, that same time that Usain Bolt takes from going into that starting line to the finishing line, which is 100 meters, that is the exact same time you have to get someone's attention. If you don't get it in the first 8 seconds, then the other one is going to start thinking about what he has to do later, what he did yesterday, that he has to go to the supermarket and buy some milk. You have 8 seconds to connect with someone. When we start telling a story, it is the best way to connect. And for the second part of the session, which is when we are going to talk about what components are in every story and what makes a great story, and how you can make a great story. I would like to share with you this video, and I would like you to pay attention to this video. This is a commercial of one chewing gum brand in the US. It is, this is an advertisement campaign that made this chewing gum brand became the brand went from being the third player to the first player in the market share with this campaign. So for this, let me just change screens because I have to go into another presentation. Wait a second. Are there any questions up to this moment? Okay, I believe no. Wait a second. I'm getting there. Okay, here's the video. I would like you to watch it carefully.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Oh, shall I stay? Would it be a sin? Oh, if I can help falling in love with you. Oh, like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Won't take my hand, take my whole life too, for I can't help falling in love with you. Oh, for I can't help falling in love.
Give extra, get extra.
With you.
Okay, what do you think about this? It is a very powerful video. Let me just say that. Okay. Wait, let me just change
You
back
made me
again.
cry.
Yes,
Likewise. Yeah.
every time I watch it, I also cry. Even though I've watched it like I don't know, like 30 or 40 times. It's like it's very powerful. It's a very powerful message. It's it's something that connects with us. It doesn't matter if you are not married. It doesn't matter if you are not, this will connect with you every time. And it is because of the way the story is put together. It is because of the way the story is told. I don't know if you've noticed, but the brand appears in the video only 2 times. And this would be crazy, if you were to talk to some marketer guys. I don't know if you here there are some marketing guys or not, but if you were to talk to a marketing guy about this, and if I were to pitch this idea, like, okay, we're going to do this advertisement about a couple that is going to get married with the chewing brand, the chewing gum papers, and and I was to tell the marketing guys, but the brand is going to appear only 2 times in the commercial. They would like say, oh, you are crazy. we're selling a chewing gum. We need for the ones, we need the people to understand and to believe in the brand, and they to but that's not the importance of the message. The message delivers powerfully because how it is built and how the story is built. And by the time you end watching this video, advertisement has done its thing, and the story is sticking into your mind. And the next time you are going and facing in that, you're going to the supermarket and you want to choose some chewing gum, it is very likely that you are going to get the Extra, which is what happened. Extra became the first player in the market share with this story. And that is because when we face ourselves with all of those chewing gum brands, we remember and we see Extra and we remember this and we say, oh, I remember that beautiful and great story about a couple that was going to get married. And then you instinctively choose, take that chewing gum brand, because you don't know if you are the next that is going to go through a story similar like this, right? Like, and just like a gossip, there were a lot of marriage proposals around chewing gum papers after this commercial. That's because we want this story to happen to us, right? We all want this. We all want love. We all want to connect with someone like this. And we've all been in those familiar places. We've all went to a school. We've all, had this first time we connected eyes with somebody else and said, oh, I like him, I like her. And we all want these stories in our lives. We want love and we want this to happen for us. But this is a great example of how storytelling really helps us when we are telling a story for ourselves and we want to tell a story for somebody else and to make it more relevant. So if you are going to pitch, if you are in this in front of this group of investors and you are going to pitch, most of you would say, I will talk about my company, I will talk about my product, and that's what I'm going to base my pitch around. And then I would say, then you are not getting the message correctly. You are not doing something that will be relevant, because that's not how the storytelling works. The storytelling works by following a series of rules and steps that we've all followed and we've all knew throughout history. And this is a great example for me to go into this next part of the presentation, because this is some we're going to talk about structure. So first of all, when we tell a story, it is important for you to know that the one hearing our story is also a human being. So that human being is also seeking knowledge, and we as human beings all have pain points, right? And the other human being is also seeking love, is also seeking truth, is also seeking justice, is also seeking happiness, is also seeking company. So you, as a storyteller, have to address this. You have to address those pain points in the one that is in front of you, for you to connect with him and for you to make your story a powerful vehicle that is going to stick in the other person's mind. And to talk about structure, I'm going to talk about this. This is a hero's journey. There is a book Joseph Campbell wrote. It is called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. There you can read about all of the steps that Joseph Campbell determined about a hero. He went to write this book because he studied a lot of the religions, mythologies, and stories we as a humanity have been telling ourselves for so many years. And he laid down a model that it was followed in every religion, in every story about religion, in every story about mythology, which is a hero's journey, and which is this that takes our hero from point A to point B. 80% of all of the movies are built this way. We go into a journey with the hero. There are a lot of points that Joseph Campbell points out in this hero journey. I'm going to simplify this for you, for the most important things that will help you for your storytelling. And for this is an example. believe me when I say 80% of all Hollywood stories are built this way. Okay, wait a second. I don't know if just wait a second, because there maybe I'm missing here a slide. Anyone has any questions up to this point?
I have one question.
Yes.
It's about these archetypes. It always has to be the hero, or it can be another one, like the searcher, traveler, or whatever.
Okay, so when we're talking about a hero, we are just talking about, when we're telling a story, there has to be a hero. Don't take it like a superhero, right? So when I say hero, it's just the person or the thing we're talking about in our story. And it is important for us to know that these heroes have a journey, and that they are the ones that we make the journey with the hero when we are hearing a story. So our hero can be a traveler. Our hero can be this is not like an archetype. Just for you to know, it's like the hero. Every story has a hero, and our hero is the one that makes that journey throughout the story. So I don't know if I've just answered your question. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, I'm going back to the slides. Sorry for this minor inconvenience. Okay. So let's talk about the hero's journey. Are you watching my screen right now? Okay. So every story starts the same. There is a hero, and this hero is missing something. There is a reason why Disney is so mean and kills. All of the heroes don't have a mom or don't have a dad. They are orphans. And when we start, watching these heroes' stories, they present us, first of all, the hero to us as a human being like us, and we connect with the hero because the hero has great pain, right? He is lonely. He could be, this farm boy lost in a moon in Tatooine and just wondering why he is there and why he's an orphan, and why he lives with his uncles. Or maybe we are talking about this girl that is being bullied by her, step sisters. Or maybe we're talking about this guy who is sure that this world is not real, right? But they all have a pain, and that's why we connect with the hero, because first of all, we see the hero as someone that could be us in the story. Then the hero has a conflict. Sorry, because this is in Spanish, but I will tell it in English. So hero has a conflict, and then in stories there's a very important figure that appears, and it is the mentor, right? The mentor appears in the story, and most of the times the mentors in the stories are these archetypes of old guys or old people, old persons that have a lot of knowledge, right? And the mentors in the stories take a very important part, because they are the ones that give the hero all of the like weapons and things for the hero to accomplish their ultimate goal, right? It's very important for me for you to understand that the mentor is this figure that does not resolve the hero's conflict. They just say to the hero, okay, I understand you. I have a lot of experience. I've been where you've been, and look, here is a wand, or here is an invisibility cape, or I'm going to train you in the force, or I'm going to give you a chariot for you to go to the party, right? They just give the hero all of the things that the hero would need for them to accomplish their ultimate goal. But it is up for the hero to accomplish their ultimate goal, right? It is up for the hero. It is up for Harry Potter to kill Voldemort. It is up for Luke Skywalker to destroy the Death Star. It is up for Cinderella to go and make the prince fall in love with her. The mentor is not going to help the hero in that way. The mentor is just going to tell, I understand you, I've been there, I have some knowledge, and I'm going to share that knowledge with you for you to accomplish your ultimate goal, right? And well, it all happens that the hero has great trials, they have great difficulties, and the hero ultimately has a transformation, and they are not in the same spot as when we started, right? So Luke Skywalker, by the end of the chapter 4, knows that he's a Jedi, and that his dad was a very powerful Jedi, and Harry Potter is no longer the kid who's living under the stairs. He's a very important magician in the wizarding world. And Cinderella will no longer be bullied by her stepsisters, and she's right now the heir to all of the kingdom. And Neo stops becoming this guy who works in computer and knows that he's the one. So the hero has a great transformation, but it was very important for me to know these figures in stories, because they're very important. And talking about the hero, it was not the archetype, but talking about the hero is the one that it's the emotional vehicle through which when we tell a story, which we travel home, right? So if I'm telling a story about my next company, and I am building I don't know, let me just think of an example. I am building mechanical arms as prostheses, and I am telling my pitch to investors. The hero would be, right, the hero in the story is going to have to be my new product or my company, or the hero can be me. But it is very important that you to know that the heroes and stories are these emotional vehicles. And one of the most important characteristics for us to connect with the hero is that the hero has a vulnerability, and it is vulnerable. So what this way stories are built is telling us is that when we connect with a hero, when we know that the hero has a pain that maybe we have, we connect with it, and we connect with him, with the hero, and we go through the story, and the story goes into our brain with a more powerful way, right? And something that is very important in stories is that there has to be conflict. If you are not telling me a story that has conflict, then you're not telling me a story at all. Conflict is what drives stories. There has to be some conflict, because when there is a conflict in a story, when there is a problem, then there would be a solution, and that is something that we will learn, and that is what our brain is seeking. Our brain is seeking to learn things. So when we tell a story with a conflict, the others are more into hearing our story because they want to learn what happens, right? It's like when we're watching a movie, and that is the feeling that keeps us throughout the movie. What is going to happen next? How is the hero going to overcome this big obstacle, right? So it is very important that you to know that if you are building a story, there has to be conflict. Without conflict, there is no story. And talking about how stories are built nowadays, there is this Greek guy, Aristotle, that told us that story has a beginning, a development, and an end. Sorry, it says end. Sorry for the typo there, but it's beginning, development, and end. That's a no-brainer, right? Right now, we could tell, and I'm going to show a diagram of how stories should be built, right? And what are the important things to consider when we are telling a story. So first of all, we have to introduce, as we've already said, a hero, because that's the one that is going to get us through a story. Second of all, it is important for us to establish conflict. Most of the stories we tell when we are pitching something, when we are talking to a partner, where we are talking to our boss, when we are talking to a spouse, everything, most of our conflicts tend to be physical or emotional. It would be very difficult for us to establish a spiritual conflict, because those are only solved in movies, right? the Force is only understood by the Jedis. We cannot go and address that kind of conflicts here. But the more complex our conflict is, the more complex our story will be, and the more interesting our story will be for us to understand it. In cinema, and this is something that happens in the movie, but it happens on the movies. But this is very important for us to know that these are things that help us. There are 3 plot points in a movie. So if you're watching a 90-minute movie, you won't. And this is a tip I'm going to share with you. Don't go to the bathroom or restroom in the first 30 or then 60 minutes of the 90-minute movie. So if you like part this movie into 3 ways, 30, 60, and 90 minutes, which is the total of the movie, don't go to the restroom. Don't go and get more popcorn. Don't go and get more soda in the 30 minutes, like 5 minutes or 5 minutes after or before that mark, because something important is going to happen on that movie. In movies, they are called plot points, right? It's when the story turns and goes into a different way in which the story was going. But what we can learn from this is that we have to introduce surprises in our stories. Then we have to solve these challenges. There has to be failure in a story. When we talk about failure, we talk about something we want to learn, and this is very important, because that is what the other people is going to want to know. They want to know your failure so they can learn from your failure. I've heard a lot, like there is a lot of fear in talking about failure when we are pitching a company to a group of investors. Most of the guys I tend to talk to, they say, no, I'm not going to talk about the failure. I'm going to talk about how my product is wonderful and how I've done great things and how I am getting a lot of money because I want money. Okay, yeah, but there is no conflict in that story. An investor is probably not going to connect with you, right? Because if everything's right, then why fix it? If your company is great, if your product is so great, then you would not need my money, right? Please get comfortable in talking about failure. Failure is very important in stories, because that's when we learn. That's when we learn the most. And when we talk about failure, we're giving the other person the message that, okay, I went through these things, these challenges, and I learned this, and look, here is a way to overcome this, and there is a lesson, and that's when you learn, right? So the most important tip I'm going to give you when you are building a story for yourself, for your company, for your pitch, whatever you are going to do, is stop talking about you, right? It is not that you're not going to go into the pitch and talk about your company or talk about what you've been through. No, that's not the point. And I'm going to get back to the commercial we saw about Extra, right? The commercial is not about the chewing gum. It's not about talking of the peppermint flavor in the chewing gum, and how it lasts longer, and how the chewing gum. That's not the point. The commercial is not talking about the chewing gum. The commercial is a hero's journey. The commercial is talking about a couple that gets to know each other, that start building this relationship, and that they have challenges. In one point of the commercial, the couple is separated, and we are suffering with them. What's going to happen, right? And then we get to this climax of the story where we see this marriage proposal in these chewing gum papers, and the chewing gum was not talking about the chewing gum. It was that's why that's because there is an important and I was talking about the hero, and I was talking about the mentor and the hero's journey, because there is something very important for us to learn about this. When we are building stories, it's not our duty to tell the story as if we are the heroes of the story, because everyone is the hero of their own story, right? So I'm going to give you an example, a very down-to-earth example of how this turns out this is not good for you when you talk yourself throughout the hero position. So imagine yourselves on a first date, right? And you are in this first date, and let's just say the guy in front of you or the girl in front of you starts talking like, yeah, I love theater and I love movies, and I've seen a lot of movies. I like most of the movies, and also I'm passionate about storytelling, and I love telling stories because when I was a kid, I was, what's happening there, right? Maybe that date would turn out terribly because we're just hearing the other guy talking about themselves, and that's not what we want. We are also heroes. We want to be heard. So if we change that and we go into that first date, and the other one starts talking to us like, oh, I like movies, and do you like movies? Okay, yes, I like. And what's your favorite movie? Let's talk about that, right? And that's when we are invested, and we want to get to know more of the other person because we start talking about ourselves, right? So one of the lessons we can learn about this hero's journey and the mentor and the hero and all of that is that when you are telling a story, you have to tell the story throughout the eyes of the mentor, because you are going to give the other all of the advantages you have that you've learned for the other to take a decision and to make something important, right? So if we are pitching our company's pitch to a group of investors, let's not talk about my product and how my product is wonderful. Tell me a story behind that product. Tell me of the challenges that got you from creating this, because you want to give the other one the message of, look, here's a conflict with my product or my company. I am resolving that conflict. Here are all the challenges we faced, and we want you to become part of it. We want you to be the hero of this story, and we want you to invest money in this so we can build a better company. It is a great, far more different message, that one, when you are giving yourself that message throughout the eyes of the mentor and not throughout the eyes of the hero, right? That's why the extra commercial works so well, because we are seeing the story throughout the eyes of the mentor, and the mentor in the story is the chewing gum, right? The mentor is helping, is going through this story with this couple, throughout all of these moments as a mentor. The chewing gum is merely, the tool that takes up to the end and that builds this great marriage proposal. Because the chewing gum is the mentor. He's accompanying the heroes, which are this couple in the story, and the message at the end is, give extra, get extra. If you have this chewing gum, then you can do whatever you want. You can also have this story. You can also get into this couple story, and you can also be. That's why internally, when we go to the supermarket, we choose the extra chewing gum, because we want that story that happens to us, because it is told throughout the eyes of the mentor. One of the, stop talking about yourselves. It's not that you don't talk about you, but stop talking throughout the eyes of the hero. Start talking throughout the eyes of the mentor. When you tell a story, tell the other one what they want to hear. Address their pain point. Talk about your failure, your vulnerability, and because that's when we learn the most, right? When we hear something that happened to another human being, and it was a conflict, and how he resolved it. It is when the story gets interesting, because we learn, right? So talk about your failure. Talk about how you are also vulnerable, right? A great example of this is, for example, what Barack Obama did when he gave speeches. First, most of the speeches, he went into the stand, and he said like, sorry for being late, but it was chaos in my house this morning, because having 2 teenage daughters is not an easy task, and we had to get them to school, and it was chaos. What he is doing there is he's going to a point where he's saying, guys, I know I'm the president of the United States, but I'm also a dad, and I also have teenage daughters, and I know what it is to be a dad of teenage daughters, right? So the ones hearing that speech would say, okay, he's also a human being, right? He's vulnerable, he has some pain points just like me. Let me hear that story then, right? So, to summarize then, and taking back, when you tell a story, you have to answer this question: why it matters to me, why it will matter to the one that I am talking to, right? Secondly, you have to make them care. And how do you make them care? Involving feelings, involving, painting all these images into other people's brains, these images that they can interpret throughout their senses, right? So when we build a story, when we get into the details of how it feels, what happened, then the other one is going to care more, right? And also know that when we are telling a story, the others want to hear their own story throughout me, right? That's why the extra commercial works well, right? Because we would like that story. We would like to be there. We would like to be that couple. We would like for us to happen these great things that happen to us. That's why we go to the movies and we see these hero stories every time, and that we care because we would like to be that hero, right? We would like to solve all of our problems, and so make the others care. And when you tell a story, get into details, get into what it feels like, get into images that the brain can interpret and understand. It is far different that for me to give you an example, I was hearing a pitch about this is like a collective group of persons that is helping Mexican artisans get more money, because it is a reality that Mexican artisans live with $1 a day, right? And the first time I was hearing this pitch, the girl that was pitching this said, okay, so we're helping Mexican artisans get more money because Mexican artisans just make $1 a day. And with my organization, I am helping them to get to sell their products with a more expensive thing, so they can get more money into their to their homes. Sounds great, right? But I don't care about that. So why would it matter to me? And I told her, okay, why don't you tell me the story about one of these artisans, right? And it's very different. That the second time she was pitching this, she started telling the story of Zenobia, right? So Zenobia is this woman, which is a Mexican artisan. She makes dolls. And Zenobia lives in the forest in Mexico, right? And she has to walk 2 hours from her home in the forest into the nearest town for her to sell their dolls. She has 2 sons, and it is very difficult for her to live with $1 a day. $1 a day is worth, it's like, if we're talking about food, is maybe just I don't know, half of kilo of tomatoes and maybe half kilo of meat, right? And this is $1 a day. And Zenobia has to go walk all of these great distances for her to sell her products and go back to feed her children, right? With $1 a day. That's difficult. Imagine yourself in that situation. Imagine yourself being able to live with just $1 a day. I know most of you don't live with $1 a day. You maybe you live with 10, 100 times that a day, right? And what I just did is that you imagine Zenobia, right? You went with Zenobia back to her home, and you went with Zenobia to her kids, and you worried about Zenobia, and that's very different. And if I were to tell you at the end of this, you can help us get Zenobia more food back into her house by investing in this company, it's very different, right? Because you already cared, because you already saw Zenobia, and you already went with Zenobia, and I painted those images for you, right? I made you feel what Zenobia feels. And that's when the story sticks into the mind and changes completely, right? Because we are addressing this, we are talking about something that it's hurtful, right? Hurtful for others. We've all experienced, lack of something. We've all experienced this feeling of not being able to make it through the day somehow. And when we talk about that pain, the story is very, is very more likely to connect. And just to get down to the earth with all of the things we've already talked about. So the hero, when we were telling about the hero is the one we are telling the story about. So when we build a story, we have to have a hero, right? Because it is, in this case, I just talked to you about Zenobia. Zenobia was the hero. And it is the emotional vehicle to connect with our audience, right? We want the audience, we want the one that's hearing our story to travel with us with the hero. So when you are building your story, you can talk about your journey. You can be your hero in this story. The journey about how you tend to start this new company, or you tend to create this new product. But also the hero can be someone who inspired you, right, to do the things you are doing. But then tell me the story about that hero that inspired you. The hero can be someone you inspired, right? Just to know that the hero is the emotional vehicle of your story. So it is the one that is going to go from point A to point B in what we are telling. There has to be conflict. There is no story without conflict. So if you're telling the story of your company, talk about failure, right? We love to hear others failing because we learn. This is like not good, but yes, it is like it is. We want to hear how the others failed because we don't want to fail ourselves, right? And the bigger the conflict, the better the story. So be careful, because if you are starting to tell a story and you solve the conflict at the end of the story, then all of the story, what comes next would be unnecessary and irrelevant. So talk about the conflict, but just don't solve it till the end, right? Or just give the opportunity for the others, the ones that are hearing you, to solve the conflict. So if I am talking about Zenobia, then I would like to say to the investors, okay, guys, so let us solve the problem of Zenobia. Let us get more money into the hands of Zenobia for her to go and feed her children. That's why I need your money, right? So you made them part of the conflict and you are inviting them to solve the conflict with you. Then the mentor, you can also be the mentor in a story. When you tell the story, please tell it throughout the eyes of the mentor, not throughout the eyes of the hero. And you have to give the audience the tools you already know that will help them overcome their pain, right? So talk about the pain and how you are going to solve that for them, right? Please notice that mentors not necessarily have to be human beings. Mentors come in all shapes and forms. They can be dressed up as situations, objects, lessons, but those are the things when we learn about in the story, right? Those are the things that help us in our story know that there is a solution for this conflict. And also, it is very important for you to think that your story has to have a lesson, right? It has to teach us something relevant. You have to leave this inception in the mind of your audience to create that urge for them to start doing something, right? When you set up your goal, when you are building a story and you set up your goal, my goal here is going to raise money from this group of investors, then the lesson maybe should be for them to know that they can do something better with their money, right? Maybe. So this has to, and we are going to teach them the lesson of how Zenobia could do better, right? And how we can help her achieve this. So these are, the things we talked about in the hero's journey and how we can go and bring them back to earth in this earthly realm and not in movies, and how we can seize them and use them into our stories. These are the most important things I also recommend you to do and to integrate into your stories.
Pilar says the client can be the mentor too.
Yes, of course. The client can be the mentor too. Yes. That's actually that's good when you put your client as a mentor. But just know something, right? You have to for your client to buy something from you, you have to address a pain for the client, right? And you have to give them, ultimately your product is going to give them a solution for their pain, right? So think of your client. Yes, you can, the client can also be a mentor, but think that you are, you are also the mentor, because you are solving the heroes, which is ultimately also the client. You are solving their problem, you are solving their pain, right? And this is for the wrap up. I know we have 5 minutes left, so just know that you can transform any communication into a story, right? This is not you can use a storytelling in an email. You can use storytelling when you're talking to your kids, to your partners, to your brothers, to your co-workers. You can transform any communication into a story, as long as you know that your ultimate goal is to make the others feel. Your ultimate goal is to implant this reality into their heads, right? So this is about it, I believe. I'm going to share back the presentation, because I was missing this QR code for you to please give us feedback. And I know there was not much time left for questions. I hope this was useful. If you have any question, right now is the time, with this 5-ish minutes we have left.
Can you speak a little bit about humor in stories?
Yes, humor is, it is the way in which we can lighten the emotions. But humor is also that part where you tell the other ones hearing you, hey, I'm also a human being. We can laugh about this together, right? When we introduce humor into stories, we create a better bond with the other ones, right? Because we make them laugh, and that relaxes the other one. When you make someone laugh, you connect with them better, right? So if you integrate humor in stories, which you should do, just be careful, right? Not try to transform your story into a stand-up comedy. You can introduce humor, but and you should introduce humor, because this is the way in which we can lighten up the emotions, and we set the audience back into a relaxed state, and they are more willing to hear what is happening, right? That if you are just treating this like very tough or very hard, if you don't introduce humor, then you might likely get an audience that is stressed, and you don't want that. Is there another question out there? I don't know if I've solved your question about humor.
Yes, just sharing a bit. I think it's compelling also, as you say, creates
Yes.
this. And also because very often I think people maybe want to hide their shadows. So when you can speak about it with humor.
Yes, if you're talking about failure, you can talk about failure in a humoristic way, right? You can just be careful, because that's going to impact as your ultimate goal. But if you're talking about failure, yes, sometimes it is something where you can laugh about, right? So when something just happened to you, you can address that with humor and say, this happened to me, and but ultimately it taught me a lesson, right? So yes, you can address your failure throughout humor, but it's important for you to share with me what you learned from it, right? Okay, so
I have one question.
Yes.
Possible?
Yes.
Do you have any recommendations about how long the story should be, for example, for your about page in your web page?
In a web page?
Yes, for the about page, when you talk about
Okay.
you and how.
Okay. You know, as far as length, make it a story that you know, a 7-year-old child can understand and won't get bored about. So if you know, a great advice is tell this story to a 7-year-old kid without any context, or tell this story to another you know, another peer, another coworker, and someone else, and tell this story and ask the question: was it boring? Where you got bored? What should you, you know, decide to take off? Don't make it eternal, because we don't like eternal stories, right? We want things we can learn, we can get information quickly, and we can learn something. That the more quick we can learn something, the better the story is going to be, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's it for today. Here are my you know, that there's my email there and my cell phone. You can text me, you can send me an email, feel free to it. It was a pleasure being here with you today. Thanks a lot. I don't know if Mariana wants to say something, or I don't know if someone else wants to say and close for the session, but thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for you know, hearing me, and I hope this could help you craft better stories.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Beto. I don't know if there's any other question. We are just in time to close sharp. So, um, also, if you haven't know about Collective Academy, you can write me about mariana.arellano, gmail, at collective.com, and there's a scholarship for women entrepreneurship in this program. So please write me if you're interested in the MBT of Collective Academy. Uh, Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot, Beto, for all this wrap up. And I know that it was a little bit of a different format because we had people in YouTube and people here, so it always complicates things. So, but thanks a lot for your time, and also thanks to Central and Melissa for the space for having this session.
Thank you all. Just a quick question, Humberto, that we missed in YouTube. Angelica Rosario is asking if how to present data with the storytelling.
You have to present data. I know that it's something we don't want to skip, because that's the hard fact. That's when we talk to our prefrontal cortex, and that's when we activate our rational part of the brain. Just know something. Present that data, but also try to compare that data to images I can understand, right? So if I am talking about how Zenobia lives with $1 a day, let me know what $1 a day for a living looks like, right? If I am talking about, I don't know, 500,000 people in Mexico live in these conditions, let me know how much is 500,000 people in an image, right? It's like a football stadium, a full, right? Like 10 football stadiums, I don't know. But paint images in my mind also, so I can understand. It is important for us to address the data. It is important for us to talk about the numbers and the hard facts. Try to tell them at the end of your story. Don't start with it, because if you start with the data, then you're going to get the other person's brain complicated, and he will start thinking about how he has to go and get milk in the afternoon. Don't start there. Start with the story, and then at the end, show me the data that backups all that I've already told you, right? Because know that the decision of what we are going to do next is going to be taken in the story part. That's why when I told you, when you go and buy an expensive thing, you've already taken that decision, because you've already built a story for you to go and buy that expensive iPhone, right? And when you go and then the clerk at the store says, okay, it's $500, then you say, oh, okay, it's expensive, but I don't care, I want it, because you've already taken that decision. So when you tell a story, try to give me the data at the end, because that's when my brain is going to try to justify and say, okay, yeah, it all makes sense, and I've already connected with the story, then I've already taken my decision.
Thank you so much, Humberto.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias a todas, a todos por habernos acompañado. Los esperamos en la siguiente sesión. No olviden unirse a nuestro canal de YouTube para poder ver el resto de las sesiones.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Cuídense mucho. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.